Kids need to know the rules so they can choose to follow them or choose to break them.
Well, hello there. You're listening to Outside the Bubble, episode 41. I'm your host, Joanna Bull. It has been a while. I took some time off for the holidays, and then to be honest, did not get back to podcasting. I took a break. I had a couple of guests cancel, and I just took it as a sign. And I'm glad I waited. I feel rejuvenated and ready to get back to it, and so excited about today's guest. Today, we are speaking with Allison Dankner. Allison's going to introduce herself, but I'm just going to let you know that this is the kind of episode where you actually may want to take some notes. Are you ready? Let's get started. Allison, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Oh, it's really great to be here, Joanna. It really is.
So tell the audience a little bit about who you are what it is that you do.
Well, I do really appreciate you having me here. I really enjoy your episodes. So I mean that sincerely. Hi, I am Allison Dankner. For the past 18 years, I've taught in the classroom, opened schools, and I work privately one-on-one with families.
Okay, so in a previous conversation we had, when we were just touching base and getting to know each other, we talked a little bit about the one-on-one work that you did with families. And I find what you are doing with preschoolers, is that the audience that you're working with?
You know, I work preschool to teens, and I work one-on-one with parents as well, behaviorally, socially, emotionally, about the kids.
So can you just share a little bit about what you are doing with preschool children? Or I guess preschool, because I find this fascinating, and I'm sure the audience didn't even know that this was a job.
Oh, okay. So I am one of these people that some of your audience may have heard. For the past, I would say 11 years, I'm known in New York City in certain circles as who to call when your 3.5 to 5.5-year-old needs to get into private school by taking a test, going through an interview, or going through a playgroup situation. And so for years, I did that. And then I worked with other families, teaching kids to read, behavior coaching, or helping kids struggling in whatever academics. But that still sends kids to me. Today, I work with families one-on-one. So I'll work with parents one-on-one or kids one-on-one or both. And I still use those resources. They are phenomenal for helping kids self-regulate. It allows me to raise their self-esteem. And the skills are, you and I talked about this, what they will use in 4th grade, and analogies, coding, patterning. It's really incredible. And these 3.5-year-olds can do it. It's just that you have to systematically take them through and really help them get there.
And today you're going to share a process with us that you call the 3 fundamentals. So let's get started with that.
Well, thanks so much for letting me share. I've come to the conclusion that everything I do, what I do, is because I really want to raise kids' self-esteem, and I want to help kids develop self-regulation. So if I have that as the foundation of everything, I look at strategies that worked in the classroom, strategies that also work when I'm working one-on-one with a parent, or whether I'm working one-on-one with a child. And these 3 fundamentals that I have found are consistent socially, emotionally, academically, behaviorally. Here they are, 3 fundamentals that I have found work consistently. We have to set clear expectations for kids. We have to reinforce the behaviors we want to see. And we have to bring kids to metacognition, thinking about their own thinking. So we want them to be self-aware, self-reflective. We want them to begin to self-regulate. And so I thought about, we always want kids in the classroom working cooperatively, right? We know the good work that they do when they work in groups. And I think about how we are as adults. Adults aren't always great in groups. Teachers aren't always great in groups. And
What?
we,
No way.
right. I mean, we know those professional development days were the most difficult group there is. And
Absolutely.
right, I've been there. And we, with kids, we need to give them specifics, because if we give them specifics for these groups, we're going to get to those those learning outcomes we want. So we applied these three fundamentals. We're going to set clear expectations. We're going to reinforce the behaviors we want to see, and we're going to get the kids thinking. So let's begin. Day one, we're going to focus on group work. So day one, you're going to get the kids together. You can do this whole class, high school, middle school. Get the kids together and say, what does a productive group look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What does it look like when a group is contributing? Right? You and I both know what it looks like when a group is really working, and we know at times when they're just sitting around. And so kids know too. So we'll collect some really specifics from kids, what it looks like when that group work is really working. You'll write it down on the board, and this is going to become the class rubric. The kids can copy it down, and those are our clear expectations. So now we've just set shared class expectations of what good group work looks like. That's day one.
Okay, just to clarify something here. So we have the class in front of us. We're asking them what good group work sounds like, what it feels like, what it looks like. Are we doing any prompting in case what we were hoping for isn't coming up?
Absolutely. Thank you
Okay.
so much for mentioning that. So, I know I'll do that. Excuse me. And I forget to say that. So, if we don't hear enough of what we need to see, let's give them some good examples.
Okay.
And I think we all know how to do that. So, we'll work it into it, right? So, we'll offer some suggestions and work it into that list. Ask them what they think about our suggestions. Have they seen that? Does it work? Right? Because we need to make this list. What we know and they know is really what good productive group work looks like. And we may need to give a lot of that list at first.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So now we'll go to day two. It was short, right? There wasn't a lot in that, but we're giving them those clear expectations. Oh, and let me go back and say, make some copies of it, or make at least one copy so you have a copy of it for reference later on. And now we'll go into this day two. So reintroduce this rubric to the kids. Go over what they decided are our shared expectations for good group work. So we're setting clear expectations. Go on with your lesson, whatever you're going to have these groups working on. And then while they're working, go around. This is my second fundamental. We're going to praise the behaviors we want to see. So now go around and start pointing out behaviors you see in that are from that rubric. So, I like the way this group is working together. Oh, I like the way I like the way this group has divided up the work. I like the way I see this group working so hard. Let them go on. If you continue to see behaviors you want to see that you mentioned in that rubric, praise for it so everyone can hear it. Go on with the lesson. At the end of the lesson, we're going to get to that third foundation, metacognition. Having kids think about their own thinking, right? You and I both know, like everyone out there knows sometimes they're thinking about what they're doing and sometimes they're just going and going, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Let's get them to slow down and think about how they did. So, right at first, we set the expectations, our shared rubric. We went around and praised for the behaviors we want to see. Now we're going to check in with them. So have them take out a piece of paper. You can use this as an informal assessment, or we're getting to the third fundamental. Let's get them thinking about how they did. So ask them a few questions, and they can go something like this. How did it go? What did you do well? What was a struggle for you? What did your group do well? What was a struggle for your group? Now, we've touched on clear expectations, reinforcing, and metacognition. You have a shared document for these expectations. Next time you go back to do a group lesson, take out those expectations, clear expectations, take out that rubric, right? Remind everybody. While they're working in groups, praise for the rubric behaviors you want to see. And then at the end, ask them how they functioned, what was the struggle, how the group did. After 2 or 3 lessons where you're just reminding them about this rubric, the shared expectations, you're reinforcing those behaviors, you're checking in with how they did, you will have groups running smoothly. You will have them working for the learning outcomes you're looking for, and everyone will know what they're doing.
Okay, so I'm picturing a classroom here, and we have our groups. Everybody knows the expectations. Now, thinking about myself as a classroom teacher, I definitely reinforced positive behavior, but I'd say more often than not, I was managing the behaviors that I wasn't wanting to see. Are we ignoring those, or what are we doing in that situation?
No, we're not. And I think that's really important to know who's in your class and who needs that proximal conversation, who needs that reminder, who needs you close. But if you've set these clear expectations and they know that's where perhaps a grade is going to come from, that's where the grade they're looking for is coming from, you can have that in the conversation. You know, if you're looking for that grade, if I know you wanted to raise your grades, I know you feel great when you get these, when you earn these grades, how are you doing with that rubric? How are you doing with that rubric? You feel like you're going to get there, or are you struggling with it? Because I'm sort of suggesting we pull back a little and start asking them how are they doing with what they agreed to do. It's a little bit of a tweak.
How would we get through to the student who sort of feels like, well, these were everybody else's expectations. These weren't my expectations. So how do we manage that?
Do you and I think best would be when we were setting the expectations? Because I think it would have to be, you'd have to have buy-in.
Okay.
You'd have to have buy-in in the beginning. If you don't have buy-in with those expectations, you can't expect to hold that child accountable. So if your expectations have been clear, I think probably we each have that student who we know they need specific reminders for their behavior or specific consequences. I think the more I used this with my behavior kids, I would tell in small doses, this is what I would love to see when we're in class time. And maybe I would walk over to them in class and say, I really like the way you're not calling out now. Great job. I really like the way you're raising your hand. Great job. If you keep reinforcing what you want to see, I do this with mothers all the time. Can I pull it back a little to a family?
Yeah, of course.
A mother came to me and she started saying she hated her kids. I know, this really loving, well-respected cool, nice woman. And we got down to that she felt like she was only reprimanding. So now these kids, the only attention they're getting is when they're getting in trouble. So I started to give her a step by step of pointing out their positive behaviors and reinforcing for it. I'm not kidding. After a week, she came to me and said, he hugged me for the first time in years. And I put the phone down and I started crying. He's 6 years old and he hasn't hugged his mother. But he's not getting in trouble anymore. She's not looking for the behaviors that are an issue. She started looking for what she could praise. And I gave her step by step, right? Because we can be really specific. We know what we want to see, but we get so caught up in telling them to stop that if we stop telling them to not do what we don't want, but we show them what we do want, we will get better results. So I had her tell them what she wanted, set clear expectations before almost every situation, and then reinforce for anything that they were doing that she liked. It was hard because there were a few moments she ignored some things, but then she pulled them aside and we talked about just not focusing on the negatives. If you have a really tough kid in the class, I did this with really tough kids, just pull them aside and start pointing out the good stuff they're doing. I'm not saying that's going to fix everything, but it feels so wonderful to have somebody point out what you do well.
And I'm thinking too on the flip side, like it's great for the kids that are not receiving praise, but it's also great for the teachers energetically who feel like they're always reprimanding and pointing at bad. Because at the end of your workday, that just feels draining and terrible.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, the mom came back to me and what she keeps saying is, I didn't realize how toxic my household had become. And I think we're all guilty of that. We're all guilty of that. We're just trying to keep up with some pretty negative behaviors sometimes. And if we can get ahead of it, can I give you another example?
Definitely.
I work with a 6-year-old who has been kicked out of 3 preschools. And I also work with his mother and his stepmother one-on-one separately. And he was getting kicked out. He just kept getting kicked out. So I expect to walk into I'm not sure what. And I walk in and I praise anything I can find. I think you're doing a great job of listening to me. Boy, are you doing a great job of sitting there with me. Thank you. What a good job you're doing. Thank you so much for answering me. I just praised him. When I get to his house, he sits down. He's ready for me. I don't have to reprimand him anymore. I'm not exaggerating. And I'm not saying it can fix everything. I'm not saying I haven't ripped up this child's sticker chart twice. I haven't done that in 10 years. But he responds to positive praise. And I think most people do. I think it's just so hard for us sometimes to remember that.
I know this story because we've chatted about it previously, but I don't think you can just leave the audience with, I ripped up this child's sticker chart twice without giving some story here.
All right. So I use a sticker chart with children, right? Because I'm behavior coaching them. And so I use a sticker chart. The first column, I'm praising for, I really like the way you did good listening. You know, I'm praising for the behaviors I want to see. So after 4 stickers, they get a prize. Then the next column, after 5 stickers, they get a prize. After 6, right? So this boy, we will call him C. We get to the first column and he keeps putting his feet on the table and he keeps kicking me. And I've asked him to stop really gently quite a few times. And now it's maybe the second or third time I've gone. And he knows that I've asked him not to yawn when I ask him a question, because that's his strategy for not answering. And I said, darling, do you remember I told you what would happen? if you yawned again. And he said, yes. And I said, what did I say would happen? And he said, you'd take off a sticker. I said, yes, I did. I said, so if you do it again, you know what I'll do, right? See, I'm setting clear expectations. He did it again. I said, honey, what did you just do? Metacognition? I yawned. Yes. What did I say I would do? Set clear expectations. You're going to take my sticker. Okay. So I take his sticker. The next time, again, he's kicking me, feet on the table, yawning again. And I've told him now that I will rip up this sticker chart, and I've been really clear. And he yawns in my face, puts his feet on the table. I was like, oh. I said, darling. I said, honey, what did you just do, darling? And I didn't say it meanly. I didn't. I know I need to give this child positive reinforcement. And he said, I know. I said, yes, you yawned, right? He said, yeah. And I said, and those feet, where are they, honey? He said, they're on the table. I said, right, darling. What did I say I'm going to do now? Right. You hear my Long Island accent. What did I say I'm going to do now? You're going to rip up my sticker chart. I ripped it up right in front of him. Now, this is a child who throws things at teachers, takes swings at teachers, and threw a desk at children.
And he's 6.
Yes. And cute as a button. Okay.
Wow.
I know, he's deliciously cute. And I ripped it up and I braced for the tornado. And I said, why did I do that, darling? And he told me. And I said, boy, you're upset and I'm upset, huh? He said, yeah. I said, because I really wanted to give you that prize, huh? He said, yeah. I said, you wanted that prize too, huh? He said, yeah. I said, what do you have to do differently next time, sweetheart? He said, I'm going to answer you. I said, right. Just answer me, honey. You can say, I don't know. You can say, I don't want to answer you, but you know I don't want you to yawn, right? He didn't say, I won't yawn. He said, I will answer you, because he knew what I wanted, right? Mm-hmm. This kid, I ripped up a sticker chart again, but he has another sticker chart again because I have him earn it. How does he earn it? He sits down, he answers me. He's not putting his feet on the table, and we're learning. He's reading now. He's reading in school. Positive reinforcement goes a long way, because if you look at what I say, what motivates me, I need to raise kids' self-esteem, and I need to help them develop self-regulation. So this child, he's still a little tornado some of the time, but I swear he has a sticker chart in his folder right now. And I'm seeing him online in 2 hours because I work with a lot of kids, even solely online. And I will give him stickers and he will keep moving forward.
So the first time you told me that story, I was a little taken back because I'm picturing, this little child, 6 years old, and an adult ripping up their sticker chart. Mm-hmm. And I imagine a lot of adults would say that's very extreme and maybe over the top. Mm-hmm, 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 so why go to that extreme with a child like this?
He's still getting verbal positive reinforcement through the whole thing. He still feels really good about himself. And at the end of it, he knew he would do better because we talked about it. We talked about specifically him doing better. And he gave me a hug before I left. He didn't act out for his parents after. I was kind with my voice. I was compassionate with the things I was saying. And I had been so clear with my expectations before that I wasn't ripping the rug out from him.
I imagine many of us, just, human nature, would be irritated by everything that was happening. And the ripping of the sticker chart would be like, while we had said we were going to, and now we're following through with the action. I mean, myself, I would be angry at the child, and it would be done out of anger, and you don't do it out of anger, which is, for me, that was what was always missing. You're doing it out of love.
I took a deep breath, and you know what I always remember? It is not kids' responsibility not to push our buttons. I've got buttons. It is my responsibility to figure out how not to be pushed.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Right? Like I was given the
Yeah.
most tough behaviors in the classroom. And you know that the administrators will give you who you know you can handle or who they're punishing you with. And I I just honed my skills on these really tough kids. So a lot of, I speak to an ADD parent group regularly. If we can lead with love, and I'm not saying they're not trying to push our button, and they're also not my children. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're not my children. I'm in there for an hour and I'm leaving. But when I work with the parents one-on-one and I give them these strategies, I promise it works. It doesn't work every time, and everybody loses their cool sometimes. But if we can get them to, I swear, if we go back to these three fundamentals, right? If we set these clear expectations, if we give them so much love and love and love and for doing these expectations, and we ask them how they did, and if they didn't do well, I'm thinking of another mother I work with. If she didn't do well, we moved her from crying for not getting a sticker with her mother to saying, yeah, huh? You weren't able to do what you wanted to do for that sticker. Do you think you can do it next time? I will be so excited to watch you do that. I know I'm speaking very radically, and I know what I'm saying. A few things sound extreme, but I think they know when we care.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They know I care. They know you care. The first time I listened to your podcast, I said, oh, she cares. She cares.
Thank you.
Remember, I said that to you the first time we spoke. You care about who they are, and they're very lucky because you do.
Even listening to you, I'm just thinking about all of the ways that even in our adult relationships, we are approaching how we deal with each other incorrectly. We should be
Mhm.
praising the positive behaviors that we're seeing. Like, when I'm working with coworkers and we get off track, like instead of getting irritated,
Mhm.
praise the work that we just did and what just happened and
Mhm.
figure out how to flow back into it. So as I hear you
Mhm.
speak, I'm just making, so many connections. Even and the audience
Oh, I'm
knows
so
this.
glad.
Yeah, the audience knows this. I've shared the story before. Like my husband makes me coffee every morning and has for 11 years. And
Lucky.
yeah, I'm so lucky. And there was a time in our relationship where I was just very irritated all the time because he makes the coffee, but he's not so great at cleaning up after the coffee.
Mhm.
So it would just like prompt an argument immediately. So instead of, being grateful for the gesture, I was just irritated by like the state of the kitchen. So even
Mhm.
just thinking about how I could have approached that differently and,
Mhm.
just reinforced like how much I love that he does this.
I when I work with a parent group, one of the things I say over and over again is if we praise the process,
Mhm.
not the outcome. So if we focus on process, not outcome, especially with ADD families, ADD kids, ADD husbands, ADD wives, if we if we praise the process, thank you so much for making me the coffee. It was delicious. Awesome. And then he sees how irritated you are cleaning it up and like mumbling under your breath. I don't know. How did you change it? What did you do?
I just decided like for myself just to be like thankful of the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And, I
Mm-hmm.
can either choose to clean up the kitchen before I leave for work, or I can choose to leave it as a mess and someone will deal with it later. So that I just decided to change my approach to the situation. But what I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do was praise the behavior.
Yeah, and if you say to him later, I am so looking forward to that coffee tomorrow. It is so awesome that you always make it for me. Thank you. And give him a kiss. He's going to be like, do, when he's going to make the coffee, right? And he'll feel better about doing it. Does he ever clean up anything about it? Does
Oh,
he?
yeah. It's just, like he's not really a morning person. So sometimes it gets cleaned, sometimes it's half cleaned.
Wait,
So
Joanna, that's the answer.
I,
No, that's the answer. Just praise him for when he does clean up and give him like an
Okay.
extra hug and an extra kiss.
Okay. Okay.
It'll work. Let me know. I hope it works anyway.
Solving my relationship problems here.
Yeah, that's what we do for each other, right?
But it is so, it's so simple, a change in the way that we approach things, because by default, humans do default to the negative.
Yeah, and you just said it's gratitude, where if we look for what we're appreciative for and we look for what's working, kids want the positive, we want the positive. We love it when someone praises our process. Right?
Yeah.
Right? We love it. We love it. And so if we can just say, thank you for listening to me while I just lost my mind on you, right? Or, thanks so much for cleaning up when I know you had just had such a long day. If you praise anything, you will see more of it. Everybody wants to be appreciated.
And it's such a small little thing that we can implement immediately into all aspects of our lives. I know for a lot of people approaching this with their full class, 22 to 35 kids sitting in front of them, it might seem like a giant effort.
Daunting.
Daunting for sure. Do you have any tips for people that are listening to us chat and sort of feel that way? They're like, but I have all of these students and the behaviors are wild and I'm just so exhausted all the time.
Yeah, I had those kids. So I would say on average, we all probably have 3 to 5 of those in a classroom at least. So 5, let's say. One of the strategies, try this. One strategy, I used this with elementary and middle. I can't say how it will work with high school. They need so much more autonomy, but this still speaks to autonomy. I would ask the child who their favorite team was. And I would ask the child which team they always wanted to lose. And then I would tape a piece of paper to the child's desk. And I would, on the top, I would do a hot dog line down, a vertical line down. And on one side, I would write their team. And on one side, the team they hate. Now, this is just between me and the child. No one else in the class knows what's going on. And I will say, every time I see you raise your hand or not throw something or not talk back, whatever behavior you're trying to eliminate, but you put it in a positive way. Every time I see you participate, raise your hand, wait to speak, use words instead of your hands, you will get a check or you will get a sticker or a stamp, whatever we know we have that they can't replicate. And you will get the point. But if it's a hard day for you and you're struggling, the other team may get more points. I hope your team wins. Okay, so now we've set the clear expectations. Each day I go back to the child. How you doing, kiddo? How you doing today? Which team you think is going to win? I'm rooting for your team. And now, because it's about the team and not the child, you can go over if their behavior is a struggle and you can say, just don't even say anything and just put in negative. Give the other team a point. Now, if you think this child is going to react, you can bend down to the kid and very quietly, so as not to embarrass them, say, it sounds like you're struggling. I didn't see you raise your hand. Do you think that is when the other team should get another point? Do you think the other team should get a point? If you can do that with a certain kid, give the other team a point. Now it's going to be a competition between who's winning, which team is winning. I hope your team wins. I hope your team wins. That was one of the things I did. It worked. I'm thinking very specifically with 3 boys over the years it worked with. And I'm not suggesting it's always boys, but it worked. What I'm thinking is it okay if I give my email?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, what I'm thinking is if you have a specific question about the classroom or at home, just send me an email. I will respond within 24 hours. I'll come up with something really specific if you give me specifics. My email is allison@successforyourchild.com. I'll respond within 24 hours because if I have specifics, I'll give you something very specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I might do then is ask some people for specifics, and then maybe we can do another recording and answer those.
I would be happy to. So if you come up with 5 specifics, you know what? Okay, how about this? Ask people, and then if we come up with 3 very specific ones, I will give specific. And then even if 5, I will give specific expectations, reinforcement statements, and what do we ask them to think about after.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I would be happy to.
All right. So while we're at this part of the conversation then, where else can people contact you? Where can they find you?
I want to thank you again for letting me share how I work with kids and what I do. If you're interested in contacting me, you can contact me on LinkedIn, Allison C. Dankner, and on Facebook, Success for Your Child, on YouTube, Success for Your Child with Allison. And I had said that email before, and I'll repeat it in case. Allison@successforyourchild.com.
And I'll link all of that up in the show notes so that everyone has access to it.
Well, let me just say, I'm a public school teacher at heart. That's where I started. So I'm always very happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I find that all the guests that I have on that were previously educators, we're all just so open and willing to share in a very different way from other professions.
Because, in the classroom, we helped each other, right? We wanted to see each other succeed, or at least a lot of us. And it's a giving profession.
Mm-hmm.
It's a if I find this works, let me try it with you profession.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, whatever works for you, kid.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. And I have a feeling we'll be having another conversation like this.
I want to wish every teacher a wonderful week ahead with the kids. And thank you so very much for having me, Joanna. This has been so much fun.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, there you have it. That was such a great episode. I learned so much about just working with people in general, working with kids at all levels, working with my coworkers, how to, work through some of the challenges in my relationship, just things I had never considered. Really grateful that Allison took the time out of her day to share all of this information with us. And how generous is it that she's willing to come back and solve some of the case studies that we come up with. So if you would like to send me any information, you can do so at Idea Smashing on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram at Outside the Bubble Podcast, or you can email me ideasmashing@gmail.com. And we'll have a look at those, and I will get Allison back on to go over what she's noticing and provide some concrete strategies. So think about what you want to know and then send me the info. Thanks so much for listening, and I will be back in 2 weeks. Until next time.